Welcome to a Dr. K Special, and today we have a very special guest on the channel, and this is Mark Leen, L-E-E-N, otherwise known as Elvis, who is in fact Ireland's best known Elvis. Would you prefer Elvis impersonator or Elvis?
Well, I was an Elvis tribute artist,
okay,
for a number of years, but I finished up this year. But I mean, if Elvis is in your blood, it'll always stay there, And I love Elvis and his music.
And you were saying, Mark, that you actually retired out of respect for Elvis. I mean, could you just tell us about, because that was quite interesting, we were talking off camera about why you decided to...
Well, he died at 42, so I would never step out onto the stage at 43 and call myself an Elvis tribute when he never lived to be 43, So the moment I hit 42, I was fortunate enough to have Elvis's backing group, the Stamps Quartet, come over with the world's #1 touring Elvis tribute orchestra, the Expense Account Show Band from Chicago, and we brought them to Killarney, Ireland, and we were blessed. There was 4,000 people came to see the show, over the weekend, and we were very honoured and humbled, and we did a good job, and it was nice for me to be able to leave it there, and unto all things a season, unto all things a chapter,
But I heard that you actually used to get Elvis's costume maker did he live in Indiana?
That's right, yeah.
Did you used to have him get to make the costumes for you?
Sure, yeah, he made all my costumes. Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. And finally, Mark, what I wanted to ask you, do you think that in some way Elvis has a special relationship to the Irish people? Because the Irish really seem to have taken up Elvis.
Well, they loved him. I mean, he knew where Ireland was. He met a guy in the army when he was in the army, and he was born on the exact same day as Elvis, the 8th of January 1935. Okay. So this guy was in the army, and they were both in the US Army together. And he went up and he introduced himself to Elvis. He said, well, Elvis, he says, it's not so much that I'm a fan, but he says, I was born on the same day as you. And Elvis was intrigued by this, because he was looking at a guy who was exactly the same age as him. And he says, oh, where are you from, man? And he says, well, I'm from Ireland. And he says, where the hell is that? Is it near London? And he said, you're getting warm, Elvis. And he said, sing me an Irish song. So your man sang him, hello, Patsy Fagan, you're the apple of my eye. This was a popular Irish song. So Elvis was, what kind of music is that, But Elvis was aware of Ireland. He recorded 3 songs, which we kind of call our own. He recorded I'll Take You Home Again, Kathleen.
Oh, did he?
He did, yeah.
I didn't know that.
And he recorded Danny Boy, the Derriere. Some people say it's a Scottish song or an Irish song. Oh, Danny Boy. And funny thing about Danny Boy, whenever I hear You Raise Me Up, it reminds me of Danny Boy. You raise me up, and I shall hear. It's the same song in one sense, But he also recorded then My Boy, which was written by Phil Coulter and Richard Harris, the late Richard Harris, the actor, had a hand in writing that song. So Phil Coulter himself spoke to me and told me how honoured he was that the great Elvis would cover his song in 1972. So so Elvis was aware of Ireland, and Tom Diskin, Elvis's chief road manager, worked for Colonel Parker. He was Irish. There was a couple of Irish people on Elvis's staff. Right. So he would have been aware of Ireland. So.
And just one thing, Mark, I heard on a BBC documentary, and I hope you don't mind if I ask you this. I heard that once you got $70,000 for a show that you did, and I'm just saying, is this true? And how...
€77,000.
77,000 euros.
Yeah, for 2 shows.
Tell me about that, because I mean.
Well, it's quite simple, really. We sold out the biggest venue in Munster, the Irish National Event Centre, with our Elvis show. Paid all the band people, everybody that was involved, all the promotion, all of that, and everything else that was left over went to the main promoter, who was yours truly.
Wow.
Wow. But it was over a weekend. It wasn't for one show. It was for 2 shows. But when you have 2,000 people in the audience paying. 25 or 30 euros in, I mean, then, and when you sell out, and we sold out, I mean, to date we have, I think, 17,500 people paid in to see our Elvis tribute at the INEC in Killarney, which is, granted, is my home turf, but over 10 nights, so the average would have been 1,700 people a night would have went to see the show there. But when we did put it on, we did it right, and we had the Sweet Inspirations over from America. We had the Imperials Gospel Quartet from Nashville, and we also had the Stamps Quartet.
Amazing. Does Elvis's spirit still live?
Yes, it does. Everybody's spirit still lives. You will always live. Anybody watching this is going to live forever. But where we choose to go is up to ourselves.
Death, judgment, heaven and hell.
Absolutely.
Mark and myself are good Catholic boys. So
look, with a cross that size, you can't.
But actually, just to find it before, because you told me that really interesting anecdote. Could you just say it for the viewers about Elvis is the King, because I never heard that one. Do you remember that one before?
Well, I knew a lot of Elvis's people, and I suppose one of the most legendary would have been the founder member of the Stamps Quartet, J.D. Sumner. He was in the Guinness Book of Records for having the lowest bass tones in the world. He was the lowest singer.
What was his name?
J.D. Sumner.
Okay.
Sumner. And his son Donnie Sumner, I still communicate with Donnie on the internet. But Donnie carries on the gospel tradition of his father. His father was a legend in gospel. He's in the Grammy Hall of Fame. But he was on stage one night, and a bunch of friends, they all came with a big sign. They bought all the seats in like the third row.
Yes.
And in the middle of one of the songs, they all stood up with a big sign saying, "Elvis, you're the king."
Yes.
And Elvis was in the middle of a song, and suddenly he stopped the band. He put out his hand. He says, "Whoa, whoa, 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 easy, stop, stop, stop." And he stopped, and everybody stopped. And he kind of looked down at them, and he didn't kind of give out to them. He said it in a tender way, because it was a serious statement. To him, he was tired of it.
Right.
He had been called Elvis the Pelvis. He'd been called this, that, and the other. He was sick of that. He knew his mother wouldn't like it if she heard it on the radio, and when he was younger. So now he's been called Elvis the King.
Yes.
And he used to say that he was very fortunate in his life. A lot of things had happened to him that he never expected. You know, I mean, we don't choose our faces or our voices or our looks, and he found that God had really truly blessed him in many ways. So he was always searching for God. But anyway, the three girls stood up with a sign saying, "Elvis, you're the king." And he stopped them all and he says, "Girls, I'm going to parody, girls, I'm going to say this one time. I ain't the king of nothing. Jesus Christ is the king. I'm just Elvis." And all the girls sat down straight away with the sign. And he started up the song again. "Ah, king of stop love," you know. And it was just, and everybody was just like blown away at what he did. Because, you know, I guess he had that certain awareness that every word that comes out of your mouth, you'll have to render an account for one day.
Influence.
Yeah, well, it has an influence on people. If you're going to tell them, that's why pop stars, you know, a lot of the rappers that are going on now saying the innuendo, the sexual innuendo, the drugs and stuff. Miley Cyrus pushing out different kind of wrong image at the moment. All that stuff. She's got to realise that little children grew up with her and loved her, and suddenly they see her doing it and think, "Oh, that's great. Now we'll do it." So, I mean, you know, everybody has free will and God give everyone free choice, but you've got to be careful what you recommend to people, because if they do it and something bad happens, then, you know...
You're responsible for it.
Well, you are in a way, spiritually, and Elvis didn't want to see people thinking that he was holier than thou. You know, there's, I mean, myself included, there's an awful lot of Elvis fans in the world that really love Elvis, but you know, to put him up there on a throne, and it's breaking the first commandment, you know.
Idolatry.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. I mean, I wish we could talk more, because Mark is probably not only a brilliant entertainer, he's also one of the foremost Elvis scholars in the world. And off camera, I'll just say that he has told us stuff about Elvis, which we won't mention, which I had never heard before, which Mark has actually got from his personal assistants, people who used to work with him. And so I think, I certainly, what do you think, Cameron Person?
I think it's brilliant.
It's been an education.
Very interesting.
So listen, Cameron Person, you were involved as well. Do you want to ask one more question before we do Lordy Miss?
Yeah, my one question really is, I've asked it to you off camera, but did you ever kind of feel that Elvis was taking you over as a person when you were being Elvis? Or did Elvis come bigger than Mark?
I got tired of it, certainly. You see, I suppose in one sense, a lot of the guys that I grew up with, some of them had reached kind of tragic ends in like drinking, drugs and so on and so forth, and suicide is a big thing in Ireland. So I always felt a sense of gratitude for having a job to do, and I was able to get tremendous highs. I'm off the drink like many years, and I was able to go into theatres and see 1,000 people standing up and giving you a standing ovation. You'd get into the van going home and you'd have your burger and chips or whatever, and you'd head for home, you know. And so you get these tremendous highs, but then the next day you'd be walking down the street, and I was always a kind of a person that my hair was dyed black, I didn't wear a wig, I grew big sideburns the same length that Elvis had them. I didn't go around talking like Elvis, trying to be Elvis or suggesting that I was somehow connected to Elvis, but I was just a very good Elvis tribute artist that took it seriously, and so on and so forth. And you know, sometimes then people say, you know, things passing up the street like, you know, or you ain't nothing but a hound dog or whatever, and they're trying to be funny, but I heard it 1,000 times before. And then one night, 5 guys were inside in a takeaway, and they were really going to town on me, and I said, my dad was with me, and I said, you know, Dad, I feel like jumping into the middle of the 5 of them and just kicking the you know what out of them, because Elvis hated it as well, being in the real Elvis in real life, you know, they calling him sideburns and all this. And my dad says to me, he says, don't be a silly boy, he says, you laugh all the way to the bank, he said. When they don't see Elvis in you, when they don't call you Elvis, he says, that's when I'd be worried. Not now.
Yes.
He says, the fact that you reflect Elvis back to them, you know, he said, take it for what it is. And by the way, he said, you set yourself up to do that. You grew the sideburns, you dyed your hair black, you presented yourself in that fashion. So don't be, if they see Elvis in you, don't be surprised. So I learned a lesson, and he was right. And I mean, I'm very grateful to Elvis. I never met Elvis, but he's the best boss I ever had. Never told me I was late for work, never docked me any money, paid me royally, and enabled me to meet some people. I've met presidents of the United States and sang for them, celebrities, heroes of mine, you know, Don McLean, sat down, had a great conversation with him, Sir Anthony Hopkins, all these different people. And I'm still just, a regular guy. But they've all come in my way thanks to Elvis, and that connection. But,
and you were saying, Mark, that one of Elvis's aides, what was his name, said that in fact you had a happier life as Elvis than Elvis did.
Yeah, Al Devor. Well, he didn't say I had a happier life, but he said Al Devoran. He said, Mark. He says, I think, he said, seeing you in Killarney here and being with the guys, he said, you're having a better time out of doing Elvis than Elvis had out of being Elvis.
Who was Al Devoran?
Al Devoran was Elvis's road manager. He was his concessions manager. And he coined the phrase, ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has left the building. Yeah, he coined that phrase. But he was one of Elvis's favourite people. Elvis loved him. And he worked for Elvis right the way from the beginning through the end. He actually worked for Colonel Parker. So, but he was a lovely man, and I brought him to Killarney.
You brought him to Killarney?
I brought him to Killarney, and we got on like a house on fire. He really enjoyed himself. It was one of the last trips abroad he had before he died.
What year was that?
2003.
2000. He's dead?
He died. He was coming from an Elvis convention in Las Vegas, and he was going over, I think, the Sierra Nevada mountains, heading for Palm Springs with Elvis's official photographer, a guy called Ed Bonja. And Al Devoran was a big man. And they had a big seatbelt on him, and he turned to Ed and he said, Ed, I'm uncomfortable in this. And Ed took his eye off the road and he pressed the button to get the seatbelt off of Al while he was still driving, and I think the car went off a cliff.
Right.
So, I keep him in my prayers, but he said that to me, and it's just one of those things that, you get certain compliments, I guess, or certain words from observers and certain people that are in a position to say those things, and you just never forget them. They become precious to you.
Okay, here's a question, Mark. Would you ever put on your Elvis suits again?
No.
For any reason?
No, I'm not a liar.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I've for somebody, I've never met a man of such integrity and such scholarship as Mark Leen.
God bless you.
And he's a great guy, and out of all the Elvis tribute acts, he's definitely, I think, one of the world's foremost. And it's a great privilege to have him on this channel. Make sure that you check him out. And we're just going to finish up with a song. I think we were going to do try and do Lord Miss Claudie.
Yeah, Elvis loved that song.
We'll try Lord Miss Claudie. The acoustics are not great in this room, but camera person, you see if you can do your job, and we'll finish it at that. So okay. Here we go. Okay.
Dr. K has left the building.